Hey everybody, welcome to the Morning Devo with Beau. Beaulette's my name, and it is, what is it? June 29th. And we're going to go through two chapters, Genesis 46 and 47. We'll read through those together because this is a actual devotion stream that I do every day, and or Monday through Friday, really. But it's to really try to get people to understand or just go through the Bible. I was a kid that was brought up very secular, progressive, Southern California kid, very kind of Marxist, actually, in kind of the philosophies that were in my mind growing up, very much more bent on socialism and things like that. As a kid, that's how I was taught. So atheism was kind of the way to go. And never picked up the Bible, certainly criticized the Bible, but never actually picked it up. And it wasn't until later in my teenage years that I actually picked it up and started reading, was quite blown away by how relevant it was to our day. You know, there's modern guys that I don't even think are Christian people, like, Peterson out of Canada. He's like professor up there of, I don't know if it's philosophy or English or what he is. But Jordan Peterson, there he is. But I know he's done even a series on areas of the book of Genesis that deal with the relevancy of these amazing old narratives. And as you go through the Bible, you're kind of quite shocked on just how relevant these old scriptures are, even to a guy like me who grows up very atheistic. You know, you kind of read it and you go, whoa. And you understand why the world is the way it is, why we are the way we are, why we seek the things that we seek, why we have wishes, wants, and desires that go in different ways, why we can't seem to just get it right, why we're longing for perfection, why we see hints of glory, but we can't seem to reach it. It's always out of our grasp. Whatever it is, we want peace, we kind of seek it, we seem to get it, but we don't have it. We don't have it at all. Everything tends to slip through our fingers. Something's wrong. We're kind of amiss. We tend to destroy everything as a human species, and we can't seem to stop. We say we're going to stop and we're going to build something better, but we build something better, and that messes everything up as well. So you can see the problem. Anyway, Genesis 46, 47. Sorry I'm a little late today, but hey, I'm in. So let's get her done. Chapter 46. I'm excited about this. So Jacob set out for Egypt with all of his possessions, and when he came to Beersheba, he offered sacrifices to God of his father Isaac. During the night, God spoke to him in a vision, "Jacob, Jacob," he called. "Here I am," Jacob replied. So it's kind of cool that Jacob, on his travel to Egypt to see his son Joseph, that he stops in Beersheba, a place that has been kind of famous on the map for different times of, if you will, reflection with God, with the deity. There's this moment where Jacob just probably has some thanksgiving in his heart. A lot of, thank you, God. There's so much to be thankful for at this point in Jacob's life. I mean, let's face it, dysfunctional families run amok. Man, we all come from super dysfunctional families. A lot of us do. And when there's a reconciliation and things go well, man, it can be really an amazing joy that hits you. And so Jacob has this moment where he stops at Beersheba and he offers sacrifices to God, the invisible God, the one who visits at times on the planet in a body. I mean, unbelievable. Yeah, the book of Genesis already has this unique God that is introduced to us. And it says, "Here I am," Jacob replied. "I am God, the God of your father." The voice said, "Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for there I will make your family into a great nation." So this might answer people's questions. Why did God have everybody go to Egypt and these Hebrew people live in Egypt? Well, it's actually a preparation for them becoming a great nation. A large nation. Egypt was going to be the place where they were going to be able to multiply in a relative safety for a time. And so it says, "Do not be afraid to go down there. I will make you into a great nation. I will go down to Egypt, and I will bring you back again. And you will die in Egypt, but Joseph will be with you to close your eyes. What a blessing that must have been for Jacob after all the turmoil he's gone through, to be able to go, man, Joseph is going to, my son that I love so much, he's going to be the one that's going to be near me when I die. Hey, who do you want to be near you when you die? You know, when it's time for you to breathe your last, who do you want around you? What are the people that you want to see? Man, that's a really good question. And it really makes us think about our relationships and who's in our life. And if there's issues too that we want reconciled, those can come up too when we kind of ask a question like that. But it's good for us to think ahead, right? To think through things, not to ignore what is the obvious, that there one day we are going to all grow old and pass away. And it says, so Jacob left Beersheba, and his sons took him to Egypt, and they carried him and their little ones and all their wives in the wagons Pharaoh had provided for them. They also took all their livestock and all the personal belongings they had acquired in the land of Canaan. So Jacob and his entire family went to Egypt, sons and grandsons, daughters and granddaughters, and all descendants. These are the names of the descendants of Israel, the sons of Jacob, who went to Egypt. So this is great. Not only did we get these different genealogies of the time of Noah and Shem, Ham, Japheth, his sons, and we get a large genealogy there. But we get these different genealogies from kind of migration when people went from here to there to here. We see who went. Sometimes you read the Bible and you read these genealogies and you kind of go, oh God. But no way, man. This is like, what's your genealogy? What's your background? I mean, don't you have like a family tree or something that you look at and you go, man, look at all the people that made me, that were a part of me, that it was through this line that I came. So many times we're short-sighted. We're not thinking that way. Obviously, we're not thinking that way. A lot of people don't want to have children. A lot of people don't like the idea of a progeny. They want to stop their line. And they don't think that way. No one's, I think, thinking, I want to stop my line. But that's the ramifications for how you live. You're living in a way that's going to stop the line. Well, that could have happened down the road a ways, and you could have not came, meaning there was progeny that happened, and it happened sometimes through good means. It sometimes happened through bad means. But here you are. We've made it to you. We've made it to me. And that sounds pretty important to me now, because here I am. I have to. Shouldn't I pay some respect for those of the past? Should I pay some respect for the things that they've had to endure in the trials? Or do I ignore history, my history, and just throw it out as like, it doesn't matter because it's all about me right now. It's really all about me. See, the whole world's about me. Everything revolves around me. It is me, myself, and I, as De La Soul once sang about. So it says, these are the names of the descendants of Israel, the sons of Jacob who went to Egypt. Reuben was Jacob's oldest son. The son of Reuben was Hanok, Palu, Hezron, and Carmi. The sons of Simeon were Jemuel, Jamin, Ohad, Jachin, Johar, Arzohar, Saul. Saul's mother was a Canaanite woman. Interesting, right? Just as Esau married some Canaanite women, we see that Simeon did as well. It says the sons of Levi were Goshen, Gohath, and Merari. The sons of Judah were Onan, Selah, Perez, and Zerah. Through and Onan had died in the land of Canaan. Remember the story. The sons of Perez were Hezron and Hamuel. The sons of Issachar were Tola and Pua, Jashub, and Shimron. And the sons of Zebulun were Sered, Elon, and Jaliel. These were the sons of Leah and Jacob, who were born in Paddan Aram, in addition to their daughter Dinah. The number of Jacob's descendants, male and female, through Leah was 33. So here you see something that's really cool too, and that is sometimes you don't get all of the names of the sons and the daughters and the blah, blah, blahs and the blah, blah. So sometimes when people ask about Adam and Eve, oh, well, wasn't it just Cain and Abel back in the Adam and Eve days? Well, no, there was more kids. You know, a lot of times the Bible's just not giving us every single person. It's honing in on particular people. Maybe their names are going to come back up, you know, but it's not naming everybody. So that helps us to realize that there's some things that we're just not privy to. Not the entire, what we could be privy to. It's not everything, right? So notice Leah had 33 kids. Wow. Jacob and Leah. Now the sons of Gad were Zephon, Haggai, Sunai, Esbon, Eri, Arodi, and Areli. The sons of Asher were Imnah, Ishvi, and Berai. Their sister was Sarah. Beriah's sons were Heber and Malchiel. These were the sons of Zilpah. Okay. And it says, a servant given to Leah by her father Laban. The number of Jacob's descendants through Zilpah was 16. The sons of Jacob's wife Rachel were Joseph and Benjamin. So through Jacob, even he loved Rachel. Remember, he loved Rachel. And, but yet he had 4 wives. He didn't plan it that way, but that's kind of what happened. And but he loved Rachel, had Joseph, had Benjamin, and here he's reconciling with Joseph in Egypt. Joseph's a politician in Egypt. And it says, Joseph's sons born in the land of Egypt were Manasseh and Ephraim. Their mother was Asenath, daughter of Potipharah, the priest of On. Wow. So Joseph had a family too by a priestess. Talk about some mercy. Hey, I thought he was supposed to be yoked, man, with the believer. Right? Someone might be saying, hey, that doesn't sound too yoked, gosh, what was this? The situation was very unique. Indeed. And sometimes there are unique situations that we need to discern in people's lives. See, some people have a mind where everything's just like kind of black and white. Boom, 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 boom. That's it. They can't quite discern anything in the other areas, And then there's other people that are maybe all over the place and they can't see anything black and white, And so it's both of the humans are like that. We tend to function in different ways. And, but it's very interesting, right? Where, Joseph, of all people, is with who? A priestess, or, a daughter of a priest of On, and my little Bible has, the Greek version reads Heliopolis. So you can look that up and find out what he was a priest of. And it says Benjamin's sons were Bela, Beaker, Ashbel. I like Beaker. That sounds like a Muppet. Naaman, Ehi, Rosh, Muppim, and Muppim. That's cool. We got Huppim and Muppim. These are great names. And Ard. I want to see someone today name their kids some of Benjamin's sons' names. That would be epic. These are the sons of Rachel and Jacob. The number of Jacob's descendants through Rachel was 14. The sons of Dan were Hushim. The sons of Naphtali were Jaziel, Guni, Jezer, and Shalem. These were the sons of Bilhah, the servant given to Rachel by her father Laban. The number of Jacob's descendants through Bilhah was 17. The total number of Jacob's direct descendants who went with him to Egypt, not counting his sons' wives, was 66. In addition, Joseph had 2 sons who were born in Egypt. So, wow, altogether Joseph had 2 sons who were born in Egypt. So altogether there were 70 members of Jacob's family in the land of Egypt. So quite a crew is going to Egypt. Joseph's the only one who's been really living there. And so he's had a family, but everybody else in Jacob's family's on their way. Definitely, nothing like some traveling, right? Nothing like some large traveling. When you read about history and you read a historical book, it's really interesting to read about the migrations of people. Even in our country, to read about the migration of people from the East Coast all the way to the West Coast is quite a remarkable read. What was going on in the 1800s and how that move came across the country over to the West. There's a lot of tragedy. There's a lot of amazing stories of success. But boy, quite interesting when this kind of migration takes place. So the Hebrew people are now off to Egypt. Isn't that interesting? Jesus goes to Egypt. Joseph's in Egypt. The whole land, people of Jacob are going to Egypt. I just mentioned Jesus because Jesus, remember, they were fleeing persecution and they went to Egypt. There's this relationship that seems to be being built between the people that have been promised the land of Canaan and Egypt. So it says, as they neared their destination, Jacob sent Judah ahead to meet Joseph and get directions to the region of Goshen. And when they finally arrived there, now this is the land that Joseph and Pharaoh had promised the people of Jacob, saying, you guys can have this land of Goshen and just hang out, live there, be safe. So Joseph prepared his chariot and traveled to Goshen to meet his father Jacob. And when Joseph arrived, he embraced his father and wept. Could you imagine what that reconciliation session was like? Oh my. That must have been absolutely radical to see. A father and a son embracing for the first time in so many years. They held each other a long time, and finally Jacob said to Joseph, now I am ready to die, since I have seen your face again and know you are still alive. And Joseph said to his brothers and to his father's entire family, I will go to Pharaoh and tell him my brothers and my father's entire family have come to me from the land of Canaan. These men are shepherds, and they raise livestock. Isn't that interesting? They're shepherds. And they have brought with them their flocks and herds and everything they own. A lot of shepherds in the Hebrew world. And it says, then he said, when Pharaoh calls for you and asks you about your occupation, you must tell him, we, your servants, have raised livestock all of our lives, as our ancestors have always done. And when you tell him this, he will let you live here in the region of Goshen, for the Egyptians despise shepherds. Wow. So the Egyptians think it's a dirty job, but somebody's got to do it. But the Hebrews are there, and hey, maybe they're going to get their land of Goshen. That's what Pharaoh's going to say. Take that land. You guys could live there and do your shepherding, man. But just do it over there, kind of thing. And it's interesting to see that some people are, more clean than others. Some people prefer getting dirty and oily and, being a little smelly. And some people don't. Some people like to be totally clean all the time. So, that's how it is back then. That's how it is today as well. And it says, so Jacob went to see Pharaoh and told him, my father and my brothers have arrived from the land of Canaan. They have come with all their flocks and herds and possessions, and now they are in the region of Goshen. Joseph took 5 of his brothers with him and presented them to Pharaoh. And Pharaoh asked his brothers, what is your occupation? And they replied, we, your servants, are shepherds, just like our ancestors. We have come here to live in Egypt for a while. There is no pasture for the flocks in Canaan. The famine is very severe there. So please, we request permission to live in the region of Goshen. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, now that your father and brothers have joined you here, choose any place in the entire land of Egypt for them to live. Give them the best land of Egypt, let them live in the region of Goshen, and if any of them have special skills, put them in charge of my livestock too. Isn't that cool? Hey, I got livestock. I don't like it because it gets me all dirty. But you know what? You guys are good at it. Go for it. It's amazing how we all have skills. Everybody has different ones. Sometimes we think everybody's got to be like us and we get really selfish And we tend to look at everybody through our own lens. We say, hey, you know, if only they could be like me because I'm so good, man, maybe they could be like me and do what I do. And we don't realize that everybody has a different kind of skill set. Some people are very good at this, but they're not good at that. Some people are good with people and meeting people and talking to people and being friendly. Other people cannot be friendly at all. They don't know how to meet with people. They don't know how to converse. They don't know how to develop relationships and invest in people and things like that. You know, people do have different skill sets. And we just have to realize that not everybody's going to be like you. We see this really fascinating with the people of Egypt and the Hebrew people, you know, and it's funny how, you know, we tend on this earth to get mad at people because they have a skill set. Oh, those people are always good at business, blah, blah, blah. And we get mad at them. These people are always good over there. They're bad over here. You know, we tend to see those differences, and instead of uniting and being diverse and understanding our diversity and kind of rejoicing in our diversity, instead we tend to use it to pick people apart and become envious. Ooh, that evil word, right? Envious of one another and hating one another because of what we lack and what someone else has. Man. And so Joseph brought in his father Jacob and presented him to Pharaoh. And Jacob blessed Pharaoh. This is unbelievable. I mean, have you ever heard be in the world but not of the world? Have you ever heard the statement have nothing to do with the things of the world, or nothing to do with evil kind of idea? Well, what do you think about Pharaoh? What do you think about what Pharaoh worshipped? What do you think about Joseph's wife and what she, and her family? I mean, here you see a lot of interesting kind of, Jacob blessing Pharaoh. I mean, this is radical. This would be something that I think people would be upset with today. Meaning a lot of people get upset with different Christians that do things maybe in the political world, or maybe they're hanging out with this person or this one, and they don't know the details. We don't know the details of what's going on in their life, this Christian's life, but we just get a little snapshot here and there, and then we make judgments. Oh, they shouldn't be meeting with that person. Oh, why are they over here? And why are they over there? And we kind of go those directions when we're not really in the know. We don't really know what we're talking about, but we humans love to make judgments. Man, do we love to judge. Boy. But the Bible tells us, why don't we remember that we want to be judged with mercy? So why don't we be a little merciful? If we want to be judged with mercy, then maybe maybe start thinking about being merciful to other people. You don't know their backstory. You don't know what's going on. You don't know everything. Jacob blesses Pharaoh. How old are you, Pharaoh asked him. Jacob replied, I've traveled this earth for 130 hard years. And boy, they have been hard years. But my life has been short compared to the lives of my ancestors. So Jacob knew that his ancestors lived much longer. Isn't that an interesting statement in this chapter? Really one to understand. So when people say, well, why did they live so long? Well, Jacob understood that people in the ancient world lived long. And so Jacob blessed Pharaoh again before leaving his court. Double blessing. So Joseph assigned the best land of Egypt, the region of Ramses, to his father and his brother. This is mind-blowing. This is mind-blowing. The Hebrew people, the shepherds, the dirty shepherds, are going to be exalted to the place of living in the best, that have awesome lands. Boy, does God do this. He tends to raise up the broken. He tends to take the smelly, and he tends to take the ones that are dirty, and he raises them up. And it's unbelievable. To the regions of Ramses, to his father and his brother, and he settled there, just as Pharaoh had commanded. And Joseph provided food for his father and his brothers in amounts appropriate to the number of their dependents, including the smallest children. Meanwhile, the famine became so severe that all the food was used up, and people were starving throughout the lands of Egypt and Canaan. By selling grain to the people, Joseph eventually collected all the money in Egypt and Canaan, and he put the money in Pharaoh's treasury. When the people of Egypt and Canaan ran out of money, all the Egyptians came to Joseph. "Our money is gone," they cried, "but please give us food, or we will die before your very eyes." Joseph replied, "Since your money is gone, bring me your livestock. I will give you food in exchange for your livestock." So they brought their livestock to Joseph in exchange for food. And in exchange for their horses, flocks, and sheep and goats, herds of cattle and donkeys, Joseph provided for them with food for another year. But when that year ended, and the next year they came again to Joseph, and they said, "We cannot hide the truth from you, my lord. Our money is gone, and all of our livestock and cattle are yours. We have nothing left to give but our bodies and our land. Why should we die before your very eyes? Buy us and our land in exchange for food. We offer our land and ourselves as slaves for Pharaoh. Just give us grain so that we may live and not die, and so the land does not become empty and desolate." So Joseph bought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh. All the Egyptians sold him their fields because because the famine was so severe. And soon all the land belonged to Pharaoh. As for the people, he made them all slaves or workers. And from one end of Egypt to the other, the only land he did not buy was the land belonging to the priest. They received an allotment of food directly from Pharaoh, so they didn't need to sell their lands. Wow. So pretty radical, right? And so, man, now you see that the area of Joseph is becoming quite an industrial place. They have laborers, they have flocks, they have bought all the land of Egypt. And so, boy, it is a government-assisted kind of political life that is going on. Everybody's working for the government, I guess, at this time. They're all working for Joseph and Pharaoh. All the land is now the government's. It's all part of the government now. This is quite an interesting situation. It sounds a little bit like what? I'm not going to say. But it sounds a little different from what we're used to, right? Over here in our country. I mean, all the private land has now been purchased. But by who? Yeah, by the government. And so now everything is owned, in a sense, by the government. And Joseph, as a Hebrew, is the mind behind it. He is the one who is doing it. And God is preparing something for the Hebrew nation. Remember, they're going to become a nation in Egypt. And so could you imagine this? I think people, just as they bag on Israel today, and people tend to put Jewish people down, which is shocking to me, but it's definitely a popular thing right now where people are doing that. You could see how this is something that certainly has its roots in history, and I'm sure we're going to find out pretty soon in the narrative that people are going to start getting sick and tired of these Hebrew people. And there's going to be some things that they're going to say to them. Wow. And so it says, so Joseph bought all the land, and now they own it all. And it says, the only land they did not buy was the land belonging to the priests. They received an allotment food directly from Pharaoh, so they did not need to sell their land. So then Joseph said to the people, "Look, today I have bought you and the land for Pharaoh." The only thing that was private was, I guess, the churches, so to speak, of the Pharaoh, the religious folk. They had the right to have a private land, but the rest was owned by the government. Then when you harvest it, 1/5 of your crop will belong to Pharaoh. You may keep the remaining 4/5 as seed for your fields and as food for you, your household, and your little ones. You have saved our lives, they exclaimed. May it please you, my lord, and let us be Pharaoh's servants. Joseph then issued a decree, still in effect in the land of Egypt, that Pharaoh should receive 1/5 of all the crops grown in this land. Only the land belonged to the priest was not given to Pharaoh. So Pharaoh they had workers, everybody worked the land. 1/5 of it went over to the government, and that was their kind of food tax, if you will. They provided food for the government, and there you go. You see that there's always politics involved, right? Always taxes, always things going on, nothing new under the sun. Meanwhile, the people of Israel settled in the region of Goshen in Egypt, and where they acquired property. And they were fruitful, and their population grew rapidly. Can you see what God's doing? He's building a nation. What did he promise Abraham? Man, out of you is going to become a nation. Well, how's that going to happen in a place where there's a famine? Man, he's going to take them someplace else. And he's going to teach them some things as they're in the land of Egypt. And so they rapidly grew, and Jacob lived for 17 years after his arrival in Egypt, so he lived 147 years in all. Isn't it interesting how God has a way of moving us to help us understand particular things? We learn how to lean on his provision, how God's going to provide when we're in a foreign place where we don't know what to do. Maybe we go to a different place and we learn how to trust God more because we're not leaning on things that we used to lean on in the place that we grew up or something like that. I know for me personally, when I moved out to Arizona, man, that was a big move. I've never been here. I never saw it. I didn't know what it was like. I never been to the area I live in today. Yet I moved here. My wife, our future child that was in her womb, and myself and her family. We packed up, we moved, and here we are. We've been here ever since. But this land has been a land where we've been able to grow. Isn't that interesting? To learn certain things from God. And so sometimes God will move us around, to get our attention, to speak to us, to help us with different things in life. And it says, as the time of his death drew near, Jacob called for his son Joseph and said to him, please do me this favor. Put your hand under my thigh and swear that you will treat me with unfailing love by honoring this last request. Do not bury me in Egypt. When I die, please take my body out of Egypt and bury me with my ancestors. So Joseph promised, I will do as you ask. Swear that you will do it, Jacob insisted. So Joseph gave his oath, and Jacob bowed humbly at the head of his bed. What a precious moment. This is something that Jacob longed to have happen, to see his son Joseph once again, to be able to have that deathbed experience where Joseph was at his side, his beloved son, who he thought was dead. But no, he's alive. Not only is he alive, but he's made a provision for Jacob and the entire clan, the Hebrew crew, if you will. There's been a provision that has been made. And it's so much like Jesus. Jesus, is the one who's goes before us, and he provides, and he makes provision for us. And he's the one who leads the way. He's the one who goes into death, and he conquers death so that when we go through it, he makes a way for us to go to the other side and be with him, to go to the other side and live, to have complete union and reconciliation with the Father. Isn't that cool? That Joseph, the son, is in Egypt and makes provision for his family. Jesus comes to the earth. The Son comes to the earth. And what does he do? He provides forgiveness through his offering for us. And he provides righteousness that we need by imputing us righteousness, giving us righteousness, a right standing with the Father. And he also gives us he goes before us, ahead of us, if you will, and he shows that he has conquered death. And so he says, do not worry. Because I live, you will live also. Unbelievable. right? So cool. So we see that there's unique things going on here, but it's to help us see that, hey, we're waiting for this special child who's going to conquer the evil one. Who's it going to be? And we see that, man, that Jacob's had a lot of sons, and we see that it's gonna take place through one of his sons, and we're kind of trying to learn which son is it gonna be as we go. But through this narrative, we get little snapshots, little movie trailers, if you will, of what the Messiah is going to be like. He's going to be someone who provides, a king that will provide a place for us. Very cool. Okay, those are 2 chapters in the books. You guys have a great Monday, and we will talk to you later. Bye-bye.